By the trade deadline or next offseason, the Sacramento Kings need to have a confident answer in this question. And I'll tell you what it is right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all offseason long. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to drag it out any longer. This is the question that the Sacramento Kings front office specifically, ideally the entire organization on the basketball side, but the front office, Monte McNair, they need to have a confident answer to this question. Of course, it will never be 100% guaranteed because there is no such thing, but you have to have full confidence in a yes or no answer to this question. And if the answer is no, that could have some pretty serious consequences or maybe some significant fallout that we'll discuss in the next segment. Here's the question. Monty has to ask himself this and have a confident answer to it, hopefully by the trade deadline, but by the bare minimum by the offseason, this upcoming offseason. Can I win a title going all in with this group? Can I win a title going all in with this group? What constitutes all in? Well, you have your core, right? You got your core five, and you use your remaining assets, whether it's draft picks or some of your bench talent, or maybe even, dare I say, Keegan Murray. And you know how much I love Keegan, and I don't want the Sacramento Kings to trade Keegan, but those are the circumstances. To go all in, to get a big name, to get the piece that I'm missing to actually solidify this team as a title team. Can I win a title going all in with this group? If the Kings front office doesn't have a good answer or is still on the fence by next summer, the Kings are in trouble. At that point, the clock really starts to tick and the Kings have a tough decision to make. I'll get into that later on in the show. But let's talk about how the Kings have a yes to that question and how the Kings have a no to that question, right? What has to happen for the Kings to confidently say, for Monte McNair to confidently say, you know what? I think I can win a title with this group. I think the foundation is there. If I'm one piece away, I'm willing to go all in and risk my job, risk my career, risk this group on this moment. Because clearly, he doesn't feel like he's there yet. Some people wanted him to go all in this offseason with a player like a Lauri Markkanen or a Brandon Ingram, but I don't think Monty feels that he's there yet. And I don't feel like as of now, this summer, he has to be there yet because he's right? This Kings team isn't knocking on a door of a title based off of what's happened over the last 2 years. But what happens this season might put them into a position where you're like, okay, I feel confident going for it. I feel confident that it's a risk no matter what. And there's no guarantee for it to work. But this group makes me confident that I have what I need to be in the conversation. Now I need to put the exclamation point on it, right? So how do the Kings answer yes to that question? What has to happen this season to constitute a yes? First off, it's the win total that we've talked about. To me, this is the foundation of success for the Sacramento Kings this year, right? This is the bar. It's not playoff seeding, although of course that's important. It's 50 wins. The breaking the 50 win threshold is something that we're not just talking about here on Locked On Kings. It's something that Mike Brown and Monte McNair and the Sacramento Kings themselves have brought up going back to last season. They've said, look, good teams, great teams are typically breaking that 50 win threshold. And look, you win 50 games in the Western Conference. I'm not saying it's guaranteed a top 3 seed, But if you win 50 games in the Western Conference, you're not in the play-in picture. If you are, then the West is absurdly, ridiculously out of the top, crazy good. And even as good as the West was last season, that's absurd. If 6 teams are higher than 50 wins to be out of the play-in picture, it's not going to happen. If you handle and control what you can control and win 50 games this season, you're in the playoffs, right? That's bare minimum expectation. Now, you can get in the playoffs by winning fewer than 50 games, but 50 is the goal. If this Kings team wins 50 or more games in this landscape of the Western Conference, I think Monty McNair feels pretty confident going, okay, this team is legit. Now, what does one more piece, what does one all-in move do? And what does the right all-in move do for this group? Also, winning at home at a very high rate. This kind of is a branch off of 50 wins. The Sacramento Kings have to be dominant inside the Golden One Center, and they just haven't been. The last 2 seasons, the Golden One Center has been fantastic, and they've had winning records inside the Golden One Center, which is to be expected. But if you're a great team, it's not just about being 5 or 6 games over 500 at home. It's the expectation that when you're at home, regardless of who you're playing, you're never going to freaking lose. That doesn't mean you always win at home. Very few teams go 41-0 in their own building, right? I don't think that's ever happened in NBA history, come to think of it. So I'm not saying you win every single time you take your home floor, but the vast majority, like, you got to win 30 plus games at home if you're a 50-win team, in my opinion. You have to do it. Like, the majority of the games that you win have to be in your building, and it has to be a wide majority. Now, that doesn't mean you can suck on the road. And we know this Kings team, for some reason, has played better on the road the last 2 seasons than they have at home. That's something they got to figure out. They need to be dominant at home. And that consistency at home also turns into consistency overall. The Kings need to play the same kind of consistent basketball against everybody. Bad shooting nights, gonna happen. Bad defensive performances, gonna happen. Some guys are on one night, off the next night, gonna happen. That's not being inconsistent. That's just the natural flow of an 82-game NBA season. But what you can't be is consistently struggling against one type of opponent and consistently good against another type of opponent, or following the same pattern that we've seen so many freaking times over the years, which is play really good when the Denver Nuggets come to town, or play really good on the road against the Oklahoma City Thunder. But then when you're playing Detroit or Charlotte or Houston's, I think, a good team, Portland, you look terrible. You look like the worst version of yourself. The Sacramento Kings need to play the same way, win the same way, and look the same way against every single team in the league. And if they are doing that, and bad nights happen, we can obviously tell they're bad nights, right? When you watch a great team have a bad night, you know, okay, that's an anomaly. See, even great teams can have bad nights and still find a way to somehow scratch and claw and steal a win at the very end. It's happened against the Sacramento Kings many, many times over the years, right? But if we're watching the greatest teams in the league have bad nights, the Boston Celtics had a number of bad nights last season. But when you watch the Boston Celtics have a bad night, I think we all looked at it and went, okay, the Celtics are just having a bad night. Not, oh, this team has an issue. This team can be exploited. Maybe some people felt that way. Obviously, they were wrong because Boston just won a title. So the Sacramento Kings need to be consistent enough to where if we're in the Golden One Center watching the Kings lose to the San Antonio Spurs, right, that would suck. Be disappointing. We'd be frustrated on that night. But if we're all sitting inside the Golden One Center, you're sitting at home watching the game, and you can tell, man, Fox is just really struggling tonight. Man, there is not a shot that is dropping no matter what the Kings put up. Man, Domantas Sabonis is in foul trouble. Whatever the case may be, and we can chalk it up to, okay, we know this is not who this team is. This is just a bad night. Versus the loss to Detroit last season, the loss to Charlotte last season, the loss to Washington, like, we looked at those games and went, this is kind of who this team is, right? Like, we all expected it. We all saw it coming because that's kind of been their problem. That's been a consistent issue. We need to get to a point. The Kings need to get to a point next season where they play so well and so consistent that if they do lose against Detroit, it's going to be maddening. If they do lose against some team where they shoot 20%, it's going to be frustrating. But we know that is not who this team is. That was an off night. That was an anomaly. Another thing, how do the Kings answer yes to that question? They're firmly in the West playoff picture. Again, this is a branch off of that 50 wins. The Kings can't confidently feel like they are a title contender if they're in the play-in again. I'll go as far as to say it. If the Sacramento Kings are a play-in team, I think it's a failure of a season. I think it's disappointing. Failure might be a little too strong because failure is kind of black and white, right? You either fail or you pass. Maybe failure is not the right word. But I'm very disappointed. I think the Kings are very disappointed. I think Monty McNair is not just disappointed. I think he's concerned if the Sacramento Kings are a play-in team. Even if they make the playoffs through the play-in, let's say they're a 7th seed, right? Let's say they win 48 games, and that's enough to be a 7th seed, and they win their first game against the 8th seed, who cares? And they're in. They're in the playoffs. But how good do you feel about that with 6 teams in the West still ahead of you when you added a 6-time All-Star in DeMar DeRozan and you were in the same position last season and you didn't learn from it? Now, if there's unforeseen circumstances, like, knock on wood, the Kings deal with an injury to De'Aaron or Domantas Sabonis for a large portion of the season and they're just trying to hold on for dear life, different circumstance. But overall, I think all of us are disappointed if the Sacramento Kings are a play-in team. To feel confident that you have a group that you can win a title with by going all in with, you have to be more than a play-in team. And finally, you have to have your established strengths, right? And I'm really looking to the offense, right? You're back to offensively playing the way that you know you're capable of playing, the way that you played a couple seasons ago, right? And that doesn't mean you're a one-trick pony and you're Mike D'Antoni's team and you only score points and don't play a lick of defense, because we know Mike Brown's not going to be okay with that. He's not going to let that fly. But you need to establish yourself as very, very good in specific areas. Offensively, very, very good, right? And then your weaknesses can't be backbreaking, can't be debilitating. You can't step to the free throw line and have a 50-50 shot that the ball's going in, right? And the odds weren't that bad, but God, it felt like it sometimes, right? The Kings can't be woefully bad from the free throw line where they're literally losing multiple games over the course of the season because they can't hit a damn free throw. The Kings can't be so bad defensively again that even if they're scoring 130 points, they're struggling to win and they have to rely on clutch Fox and clutch DeMar DeRozan every single night to carry them through, right? They can't have debilitating, back-breaking weaknesses, but they have to have established strengths. If they have that, the team has a clear identity. They know how they win, and they know the one major improvement that they can make that solidifies this team as a title contender. That's what gives you the confidence to go all in. But how do the Kings get a no answer to that question? To me, it's the obvious answer. Well, Matt, if the Kings don't win, I'm not even worried about that. Like, this Kings team's gonna win over 42 games, right? This Kings team's gonna be an over 500 team, right? Like if they're not, then meltdown mode, or again, maybe unforeseen circumstances, knock on wood again, some kind of catastrophic injury happens and it's a lost season. But even then, you still have the same result that I'll get into that you have to deal with. So there really is no injury excuse. This Kings team, bare minimum, is going to win 42 games. They're going to be an over 500 team. So I'm not even worried about that. What I'm worried about is not winning enough, right? Like we talked about, you're not sniffing that 50 win mark. You're not winning at a rate acceptable enough to put you in the top 6 firmly in the Western Conference. If you have similar issues as last year, right? The offense is inconsistent, does get back to what it was. Defensively, you struggle for half the year, but are good half the year. Free throw shooting is terrible. Perimeter defense is terrible, right? If the Kings look the same, if they essentially look like they're treading water, that's where you're getting a no or an I don't know. I don't know could be just as dangerous as no. If you don't know, if you still don't feel confident at the end of this season about this team, about going all in with this team to win a title, then the Kings are in a tough spot. The Kings are in a tough spot. I will break down for you If the answer is no, or the Kings are unsure, what happens? Or what the fallout is from that. The Kings will be put on a very uncomfortable clock. And I'll explain more here in just a second. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right. If the Kings get to next summer and Monte McNair can't confidently say yes to the question of, can I win a title going all in with this group? If he can confidently say no, or he says, I don't know yet, I still don't have a good full feel on it, then the Kings are in a really tough spot. Now, this is a different tough spot. This is a different clock to be put on than a team like Golden State or the Lakers or the Clippers or the Suns, right? These are teams that they have a window that's rapidly closing, right? Because they're older. They have yesterday's stars. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, right? Like those teams are loaded with the icons and the heroes and the first ballot Hall of Famers that we're going to celebrate when they retire in the next handful of seasons. The league, the torch has been passed. That doesn't mean that they're bad players. Doesn't mean that they're washed. The torch has been passed to the next generation of stars in the NBA. And it's been that way for a while. And a lot of those old stars are on those teams that I just listed. So they're all in right now, right? The Kings are not all in yet. So that's positive. Another positive is they have their assets. So the Kings are not put on a clock to where it's like they need to know the answer because they need to go for it immediately. That's not what I'm talking about. But they are on a clock in a number of ways. Now, I will not go as far as to say, some of you might feel that if the Kings miss the playoffs this year, or maybe they make the playoffs, but they don't really look like as good as they should, or whatever the case may be, they lose in the first round of the playoffs. Some of you might feel that that should make the seat for Monte McNair a little hot, right? Maybe his job should be in question. I'm not there yet. I don't think that, I wouldn't go as far as to say if this season doesn't go very well that Monte McNair's job is in jeopardy. It's the conversations may be starting, but he's not feeling the heat, in my opinion. But if the Kings miss the playoffs 2 years in a row, who knows? Somebody's head might have to roll, and Mike Brown just signed a contract extension, so I don't know. That being said, the Kings are put on a clock for a number of reasons. Number one, they have now wasted another year of De'Aaron Fox. And they have a huge decision with De'Aaron Fox looming. Fox is kind of in a contract year this year. Technically, he has 2 more seasons, including this upcoming one, left on his deal. But if De'Aaron Fox makes an All-NBA team, he's eligible for the Supermax extension. That's the reason why he's turned down 2 straight contract extensions over 2 straight off seasons from the Kings. It's not because he doesn't want to remain in Sacramento. It's because there's more money to be had if he does what he's already done before, which is make an All-NBA team. So Fox has his eye on that, right? If the Kings don't feel confident that they can win a title with Fox as their super max leader, they're in a really tough spot. Because now, if he's eligible for it, he's going to expect it. He's going to want it. And you either have to pay him or trade him. And I'm not saying that has to be that you have to have the answer to that question next summer. But you probably have to have a pretty good idea, because as soon as he's eligible for it, he's going to want it. As soon as he's eligible for it, the smart move would be to give it to him. But if you give it to him and you're not confident that he can be your number one on a title team, you're just paying for nothing. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. That's the goal, is to win a title, right? If you're paying a supermax to a player that you don't believe you can actually win a title with, what the hell is the point? I think De'Aaron would say the same thing. If you're paying me and you don't think that you can win a championship with me, what's the point? Now, he'll still happily take the paycheck, right? He'll still happily stay in Sacramento with his family, which, by the way, is expanding again. De'Aaron and Rasay are, I believe, expecting a daughter. So congratulations to them. They might take the money for sure. But if you're Monte McNair and you're building a team and you said, okay, I'm going to give all my money to somebody who I don't think I can actually truly win a title with, you're not doing your job right. You're not very good at your job. That being said, it's not a one-way decision. De'Aaron Fox has to make the decision too. So let's play that scenario out. De'Aaron Fox goes through another season with Domantas Sabonis, who is now being paid $40 million a year, is in year one of a 4-year deal. Keegan Murray, who he has a very, very strong relationship with, but maybe Keegan doesn't make the jump yet, and maybe Keegan's ceiling gets a little bit lower than we expected. The DeMar DeRozan experiment doesn't work, and DeMar is going to be 36 by next season. Like, whatever the case may be, and De'Aaron looks around and goes, I've spent my entire career here. This is their best swing. How much better can they do than this? And we're still not winning. I got to get out of here. Maybe I want to go home to Houston. Maybe I want to go to a big market like LA or Miami. Maybe I want to go join a title contender. I don't know if those are De'Aaron's motivations. I have no idea. I don't. But it's his decision as well. It's not just the Kings' decision. So you're put on a clock because if this doesn't work again, you're one step closer to having to pay the man who might look around and go, maybe it's not worth it to win here if winning is truly my number one motivation. So that's one of the things you have to think about. The other thing is, it's a good thing to have still the assets that you need to improve the team, right? That's never a bad thing. It's one of the things we talked about why the DeMar DeRozan addition this offseason was so good, because the Kings did it without trading away or giving up on a bunch of picks, right? If they had done the trade for Lauri Markkanen, it would have cost them not just multiple first-round picks, like 3 or 4 first-round picks. It also would have cost them probably like 3 or 4 pick swaps on top of that, right? The Kings still have assets that they can use. That's a good thing, because if Monty feels confident that he can win a title by going all in with this group, he has what he needs to go all in with the group. But if he still has those assets, he gets to the end of this season and he still doesn't have a confident answer. If the answer is no, he'd be a fool to still use the assets to try anyway. If the answer is, I don't know still, and you still go for it, now we're going into the playbook of desperation, which is not Monte McNair's playbook, right? Monty doesn't just do something to do something, but maybe, like we talked about, maybe his seat starts getting a little hot. He feels like he has to do something to save his job. He feels like the Kings need to make a desperate swing for a star who becomes available, a Zach LaVine-esque move. I'm not saying that would be the move, but a move that looks a little more desperate than it looks smart, that could have the potential of working. It could also have catastrophic failure possibilities to it. But the Kings make that move anyway, just to add something different, just to try and make one last swing. If Monty does that, while being unsure about this team's potential, this group's potential to actually truly contend for a title, then, again, we're in desperate times at that point. And that does not match the identity or the MO of Monte McNair. So if the answer for the Kings is no, or I don't know, all of these things come into play. Fox's payday, the question of, do you have to move on from Keegan Murray in order to upgrade the way that you want to and give up on another one of your first round picks? And give up on is not the right term, but trade away another one of your first round picks to try and get another name. Do you go all in with all your assets and handicap yourself like at first it looked like the Minnesota Timberwolves did, but now they're good, so who knows? That's the position that the Kings find themselves in. But if the answer is yes, right? If they go into the trade deadline or they go into the offseason and the answer is yes, you know what? This group is there. Maybe we won a playoff series. We were a top 5 seed, top 4 seed. We know we can compete. We just need that one missing piece. We just need the Mike Bibby. We just need in the Denver Nuggets situation, we just need the Aaron Gordon. We just need whatever. If the answer is yes, then you go for it, right? Now you can go for it, and it's hard to really blame you. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least you're trying. You're making your swing, and you can do it with confidence. That's where the Kings have to get to by this upcoming summer, by next summer, I should say. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer that you get to the event. And of course, you don't just buy baseball tickets on Game Time. If you want to buy tickets to any sporting event, Sacramento Kings games, of course, you want to go buy tickets to a concert, whether it's a smaller concert at a local amphitheater or a massive stadium concert. If you're going down to the Bay to watch Taylor Swift perform at Levi Stadium, or you're watching Chris Brown, who is just inside the Golden One Center, right? They got tickets for that. They got tickets to comedy shows, your local comedy clubs. They got tickets for anything you could possibly need. And the one thing that's consistent is the closer the event gets, the better the prices are. My wife and I were in Las Vegas not too long ago, and we wanted to go see Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars, huge. I'm a huge fan of him. I love him. One of my top 3 artists right now. Bruno, the tickets were expensive, as expected in Vegas, right? On a Friday night. Closer we got to the event, tickets just kept going down. We were walking the strip, having dinner, deciding, are we going to do it? Are we going to pull the trigger? Tickets go down. We ended up saving almost 60% on seats that we were looking at initially buying. But because we waited until less than an hour before the show started, we bought our tickets at a 60% discount. That's just an example of some of the money that you can save on Game Time, and it happens for all sorts of different events. They have the lowest price guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section or same area, or like same row, same seats on a different marketplace for the same price or for a better price, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, go to Game Time, download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's end this show with a question for you. We talked about the question that the Kings have to answer, but here's a question for you, and it's a fun one. The NBA schedule is coming soon. And of course, when it drops, we'll do a whole unbelievably ridiculous but classic NBA podcast reaction and breakdown of the NBA schedule. I love those episodes, by the way. I love them. They're stupid. They're silly. They're very much podcast content during the offseason when there's nothing else going on. But when the schedule drops, I love that day because you can really start to map out the season and the season becomes real. And it's coming, right? That day is coming. Before that, though, let me throw the question out to you. It's the home opener. Hopefully it's the season opener as well. I hate when the Kings start on the road. They started on the road last year, got the win in Utah. That was great. Started home. It's the home opener. The Kings are playing inside the Golden One Center, obviously. Who do you want their opponent to be? Do you want a big marquee matchup in the Western Conference right out of the gate? Do you want the Oklahoma City Thunder or the Minnesota Timberwolves in town to really put this new Kings team with DeMar DeRozan to the test right at the very beginning? Or do you want an easier matchup? Answer in the comment section down below at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. You can hit me up there. You can email me MattGeorgeSports@gmail.com if you want to. West or East, right? The East is probably easier. And I say that because every single game in the Western Conference is just going to be brutal, right? I don't think there's going to be a bad team in the West. The worst team, I think, is going to be Portland, and even they're going to be pretty good. I think San Antonio is going to be good. I think Houston's going to be good. I think Memphis is going to be good. I think Utah's going to be all right, like all right to good. So I don't like the West is going to be tough no matter what. The East, for the most part, is too, but there are some bad East teams out there. The West games are going to be must watch. Do you want East or do you want West? If it's a West team, and more than likely will be a West team, I think I'm hoping for either like San Antonio, because it's a game the Kings should win. We get to see the return of Harrison Barnes to Sacramento and his revenge game, which actually maybe we don't want that because Harrison dropped like 30 plus in Utah in game 1 of the season last year. So maybe we don't want to see HB's revenge that early. Plus Victor Wembanyama, of course. I think that Spurs team is going to be really good. Maybe Houston, another team that was below the Kings in the standings, but another team that I expect to be good. But the Kings can and should beat them on opening night. What about the Lakers? Kings-Lakers opening night would be sick for a number of reasons. Number one, it's Kings-Lakers. It's always a good time. Number two is the Kings own the Lakers. And they have in the past. So I would expect the Kings to win that game. I mean, I expect if the home opener, I expect the Kings to win the home opener, period. Again, going back to our conversation earlier, winning at home should be the expectation regardless of the opponent. Now, if it's East, here's a debate that I was having in my own head. Do you want one of the soft Eastern Conference teams? Do you want Charlotte, Washington, or Detroit? The reason why I say yes is because home opener, the Kings, I don't think, will make the same mistake of not getting up and getting ready to play against their opponent, right? So get one of those games out of the way immediately, right? Just get it done. Get the Detroit game done. Beat them by 30 on your home opener and get it done. You only have to play them one more time for the rest of the game or rest of the season, right? Same thing with Charlotte, Washington. Maybe Chicago. Maybe it'd be cool to get the DeMar DeRozan revenge game against the Chicago Bulls, if it even would be a revenge game. There's no really animosity there, but to face his former team, that would be kind of fun. Really, there's only one wrong answer. There's only one wrong answer of who the Kings cannot, should not, and hopefully will not face in their home opener. And I think, let's do it together. Let's say it on 3. 1, 2, 3. New Orleans Pelicans. God, no. I don't want to see the Kings play the Pelicans until at least December. Give me a month and a half of just none of them. Nothing. Don't want to see them. Don't want to see them on my TV. Don't want to see the schedule. Don't want to see nothing. I don't even want to see the logo. New Orleans, beautiful city. Screw you. Don't want to see it. Nope. Even if the Kings will beat New Orleans this season and not lose to them 6 damn times, I don't want to see them. Done. No New Orleans for the first month and a half of the season. Please, God, let the Kings play any other of the 29 teams. I also, I'm okay if the Kings don't play the Warriors on their home opener either, because those two teams play each other so damn much as it is. Let's get something new, something fresh in there, right? But no New Orleans, no Pelicans. It's the only wrong answer. That's all I have to say. All right, let me know, which team do you want the Kings to play in their home opener? Hit me up in the comment section down below. Hit me up on Twitter at MattGeorgeSack, or email me mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. You want to share your thoughts too on what we talked about? The Kings need to have the yes or no or I don't know answer to going all in with this group by next offseason. You want to talk about that? Hit me up, share your thoughts on that as well. Appreciate your support. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.